Good morning.
Good morning.
I tell you what, Rotaries are known for participation. And I, as a guest sitting in on the level of commitment that you have exhibited for the community is, I think, outstanding. I think you ought to give yourself a round of applause again. I was really impressed. I had the opportunity to be in Rotary in a number of communities, as Chris had said, across Illinois. And I'm self-aware of the timeline in which you run an organization, so don't worry about going long. And the other thing is, as we all know, one of the major reasons people join Rotary is to learn more about each other and their community. And so much of what we do, we end up driving, oh, look at that, it was already up. You did a great job. I forgot where I was at. So we drive by so many of each other's businesses and what we do, and we don't really pay attention to what's going on around us as much as what we could. And Chris said, you know, it'd be nice for us to talk about a little bit about what Growmark is. And I consider, you know, working with them, and I've been, as Chris mentioned, with Illinois Farm Bureau for 26 years and joined Growmark in 2009 and had the opportunity to do that. I have been involved with associations in small communities as well as in government relations, and have been a part of teams that developed legislation on the state level and the federal level as well. It's interesting to see the workings from the inside out, and then how it's reported. And I want us all to think about an election season that's coming up. Just one thought for you is engagement and conversation and respect for one another's opinion is how we get stronger and better, not only in our communities, but in our government systems, as well as the services that we are members of, whether it's churches, our school districts. We all have different opinions. We all wore different colors today when we got up and decided what to wear out of our closet. And I think that one of the things I continue to carry with me is listening to perspectives. We carry our own, but we can't carry each other's all the time, so we've got to learn and listen every day. And that's extremely important. So Growmark, what is Growmark? Some of you may know, some of you may be surprised about how we've grown. And you can't learn where you're at today without thinking a little bit about history. And that says 93 years, it's 95 actually. I should have updated that for the current year, but it's 95 years that you have to see a Farm Bureau logo up here in the upper left-hand corner. 9 counties in 1927 of farmers. You know, farmers have always needed to be at the front edge of technology and innovation. When we were settling the land and then cultivating it to make livings and then even sustain as a society, we had needs on the farm. We learned about fertilization, soil improvement. Then after horses, we had the need for tractors and mechanization and fuel. And believe it or not, in communities, fuel was being delivered to urban areas, but they wouldn't pay attention to the farm community because why? It took so long to get a gallon of fuel across miles. It's no different than electrification. Everything focuses on urbanized areas first because if you think about the economics, more people per square mile, obviously it's much less dense in rural areas. That's where a cooperative got together. I know in today's age, maybe you have a rule against looking at your phones in Rotary, but I'm going to encourage you to do this. Look up the 7 principles of cooperatives on your phone. If you want to go to Google, I understand you're engaged in the conversation. And the point is about cooperatives, is it was an opportunity in 1922, there was a Senator Capper and Volstead. They were from the states of Minnesota and Kansas. And what we learned is antitrust was becoming a big deal. Turn of the century, there was a lot of rail companies and oil companies and all kinds of companies that were forming and consolidating power and a lot of wealth. And what they found is farmers were not being served. But yet antitrust statutes stood in the way of individual business people forming a collective bargaining unit, in a sense, of a cooperative where they could pool their purchasing power and marketing power and then utilize that to their advantage as individuals and then operate as individual operations. And if you look at those 7 principles of what a cooperative is, the formation of cooperatives are those bands of farmers getting together and pooling those exact powers. So in 1927, they began doing that in 9 counties. And we had the opportunity then in 1980, Growmark was formed through FS Services and then the consolidation of Illinois Grain Corporation. So what a cooperative is, there's a number of brands. I go to the National Council of Farmer Cooperatives. We're very engaged with the National Council of Farmer Cooperatives. They're headquartered in Washington, D.C., and as you might guess, I told you a little bit about my background working in policy and advocacy. I never thought about these brands. We use them every day or see them every day. Their advertising campaigns are pretty robust. And yet they're bands of farmers that get together on a consistent basis and are very successful marketers of products. And thankfully, I think they're very high quality, and we are glad that those food products are around every day. Growmark today, we had started out as Illinois Farm Supply in 9 counties in 1927. And then in 1980, I told you about the formation of Growmark itself and what that means. We are now a cooperative system, and I like to think of it as a quiet giant on the prairie, because we had closed last year about $9 billion, and of course everything is inflation based, and now I think we're going to be near a $14 billion gross annual sales entity that is North American wide. We have market about 2 billion gallons of fuel products. We also secure approximately 3 million tons of fertilizer to distribute across the nation. And we have operations in the province of Ontario. We market energy products in 4 other provinces in Canada. And something that I think is a gee whiz factor that I like to tell members of Congress and congressional staff, we can't take credit for their record, but we are also the turf providers for expertise on keeping the turf in great shape on Wrigley Field and Soldier Field. It has nothing to do with the people playing, right? It's just the turf is in excellent condition. And I tell you what, I took a congressional staff tour to Soldier Field, and we toured the field and we were out there. And I don't know if any of you have had the opportunity to kick a field goal, but it always thinks, how can they miss it? I would challenge any of us to try to kick a field goal today. Even 15 yards, I would say that would be a challenge to me. We focus in areas of agronomy, energy, grain, engineering, and construction and logistics. Really, if you think about a cooperative today and what we're doing to supply farmers, Chris talked about technology. We are constantly seeking the newest innovation to advance ourselves in efficiency, environmental responsibility, sustainability programs. It's extremely important. All of us are looking toward how we reduce our carbon footprint. And yes, we are part of that process as well. We've got a long way to go. We're just on the front side of starting that process. But we are beginning to measure what that means and help our suppliers and others through the industry who are very focused on what it means to be efficient. Because efficiency and sustainability have to have an economic component as well. So often in the dialogues that I hear, we don't hear enough about being economically sustainable. We have farm operations. Our family's over 100 years, approaching actually over 150 years now, on our family's farm operation south of here, about 90 miles. And you can't sustain a family farm operation that long, or any small business. So many of you are in small businesses. You realize you have to make money each year to have a sustainable operation. And you can also do a tremendous amount of good, as you do with Rotary. So those components are important and are embedded in each of these areas. These are some of the brands that our cooperative system utilizes across North America. So we have everything from trucking to seed to lubricants to the agronomy services that we provide to producers in the United States. This gives you a geographical representation of 3 states. Why 3 states? In 1927, 9 counties in Illinois. And then as the Farm Bureau started advancing from soil improvement associations and became more of an advocacy, and in fact, we're a part of the Cooperative Extension Service, because when you think about how cooperative extension actually then, its education model was to go out and work with people, rural, urban, and expand their knowledge base. And then in 1955, just to finish that story, there was an actual separation from the advocacy component of what farm bureaus did, and then the education component that Extension still does today. But it started in 3 states, and as farm bureaus spread, so did our cooperative system, to where now this would be a reasonable geographic representation of what we do. I'll also give you another gee whiz statistic, or at least a piece of knowledge. We're the largest vegetable seed distributor in North America. Once again, you don't think of a cooperative in our backyards, where we are the largest vegetable seed distributor in North America. So we own Seedway and Champion Seeds in California. And vegetable seeds, specialty seed production, cover crop seeds, pollinator mixes, we do all those seed lines. They're very specialized, and yes, they have some value associated with them, because when people buy them, sometimes they're a little surprised at their cost. But if you think about the harvesting of pollinator mixes and pollinator seeds, they're not highly productive, but they're highly important in today's world. This gives you a little bit of thought about how we operate. We do have a very strong focus in the province of Ontario, other provinces, but then federal Canada as well. We work very closely, of course, across North America and states. And I want to end with this, a little bit of look over the horizon. Since I'm in government relations, I think it's very important to have a perspective that's broader based than just the one in which we live. We learn a lot from everyone, and I heard the dedication you have to International Rotary, and the recognition that we need more dialogue and more interaction. In a time where I sense that we are challenged country by country, focused on national security, and then the challenge of conflict. And we have to, I heard a wonderful story about perseverance this morning, and I think about that when it comes to how we have to get along as cultures and what we have to do in our systems. And too often we get focused on the politics and difference, when we really should be focused on the policy and people. We have to be a part of each other and support a system of strength, national security. You think about what farmers do, and our supply system, it is of national security. When COVID hit and started to shut down, we actually went in with National Council of Farmer Cooperatives, and we're talking to the Secretary of Agriculture. And at the time, they were very concerned, because when they were shutting down the country, they were not listing agricultural supply chains nor farmers in essential businesses. Now think about that. We get one chance in North America to get a crop planted, and we get one chance in North America to harvest the crop. And we also have seen, very importantly, how the grain being exported from Ukraine is going to matter in Northern Africa, in some of the Eastern European countries. This is a critical component. Ukraine has 23% of the rich soil resources in the world. 23%. When we start thinking about what that impact means, and then our role, all of us collectively, because I look at us all in this community as being a part of an agricultural supply production chain, it's going to be important that we are focused on production of food and food products and food security, not only for this country, but for the world. Because hungry people are unrestful people. And we all understand that. So we've got a point there. I want to wrap this right up. We're going to see the election. It's important that all of our voices are heard. Yes, everybody's trending that there's going to be a change in the House. It looks still very strongly that it's going to be likely Republican change in the House of Representatives in the states. That if the Senate would be too close to call. One of the things that all of us in business, we're operating under a waiver for COVID yet for transportation systems and hours of service until August 31st. We kind of forget that. It's going to be extremely important that we stay focused on that. And if we see a tightness in our supply chains to accomplish what we were talking about, it's going to be important to let our elected officials know and see if they can't give us another waiver extension. Supply chain enhancements and streaming continues. I say that we're all labor short. I don't know, maybe, hopefully you have full labor opportunity, but we are labor deficit. And so I'm going to share with us that we're driving technology and innovation and autonomy. I can see artificial intelligence advancing at a pace we never thought. So the next 10 years, next 5 years, I should say, on the farm and in our production systems, we are going to be automating more and more and more. In fact, we just took a tour of Tyson in Beardstown, meat processing facility. They're going to spend, I forgot, it was like $260 million. They are 200 workers short, and they're going to automate those 200 workers' jobs. Those 200 workers' jobs are in I said Beardstown, I think. I should have meant Monmouth, Illinois. Monmouth, Illinois. Monmouth, Illinois is not a large community, and those 200 jobs are gone. We're going to see, the other thing I think as persons we should remember, tax policy. Our personal income tax rates, as we know them today, expire in 2025. If you're not tuned into that, we should be. Economics are important on all levels. That's going to be a part of our discussion. And then, as I mentioned earlier, private sector climate change activities, climate smart agriculture, our engagement with farmers and how we can sequester carbon in the soil, extremely important. With that, I'm going to wrap up because I think I'm hitting my time marks there.
We do have a few minutes. If anybody has any questions, that'd be great.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for being here, first off. You know, you talk so much about technology. I'd be very interested to hear your opinions on where you think we're going with vertical farming, and is that something that Growmark would be involved with or is already?
Vertical farming, and that would be the instance where it's typically located near metropolitan areas or even in metropolitan areas where they can take over, I say take over, repurpose older buildings or even large complexes. I've heard of some locations where they've had an old Walmart where someone then bought that building and then they put in a lot of UV lights, usually associated with solar panels, because when you're vertical farming, you have this interest in making sure that you're doing as much renewable as much as possible in a controlled environment. And yes, it is going to be a real factor in vegetable crop production for our country and I think other places around the globe. And the reason why is because you're going to hear a theme here, but you can automate these production systems. You can put them in trade bedding systems that then are on rotational platforms where you can actually move them through the closed atmospheric condition vertical farming building. You can put if you've ever been in a spectrum controlled, you know, we think of the sunlight and plants growing, and they do obviously work very well. But if you really want a plant to grow quick, you'll raise the carbon dioxide level within that framework of a building. You will increase the blue and red lights. So you'll go through, it's kind of a little bit fascinating to walk through a facility with primarily LED blue and red lights, but the plants love that, what I just talked about, and that's where they're optimized their photosynthesis, so their growth rate is enhanced. So then you're able to grow more, do more with fewer people. And so, yeah, the harvesting facilities are real, and vertical farming is real. Also growing under glass, Kentucky has a number of operations that were actually bedding plant-based. I've been to a 40 and 80 acre greenhouse system in Kentucky where they converted the landscape bedding facility to hemp production. So CBD oil was very big on that as well. So not only do you do vegetable production, but fibrous crops as well. Yes?
You mentioned Ukraine, I forget
yes.
the percentage.
23.
23% of what?
Rich soil resources in the world.
And what do we have here?
Rich soil resource in the world, right here.
What percentage compared to Ukraine?
Oh,
okay.
You got me this morning.
Yeah, okay, but does Ukraine produce more? They don't produce more corn and soybeans
no.
than the United States.
No, but when you take it and you think about 23% of the world's rich soil resources, and why you hear so much about Ukraine and whether the shipments of wheat are important, they're critically important. Wheat, I got to think here. I do remember this statistic. I'm usually not a morning person, so this is a little bit of a problem. But Ukraine is about the size of Texas. So when you think of rich soil resources, and we're in Bloomington, Illinois, so I shouldn't get knocked too hard for this. We're right in the middle of the Corn Belt. People just went to Colorado. People go, oh my God, you got corn after corn after corn. I get bored to death driving. And I said, yes, if it wasn't for the beauty of our area, we wouldn't be so plentifully filled with food supplies in this country. This area, when you travel, you learn I urge you to look at your feet and what you're walking across. You can't grow good gardens in the rocks and the beauty of the hiking trails in Colorado. Can't do it. We grow corn. People in other areas of the country say, you guys can look at a bag of seed and it grows. It's so easy to farm back there. And in some ways it really is. We are blessed beyond belief with the glaciation and the flatness of our area and how the soil resources work. I know what that means.
So in that list, you mentioned like agronomy, engineering, logistics, and you also mentioned energy. Is Growmark principally involved in like liquids, or are they involved, or do they want to be involved in electricity, or how do you see that?
Oh, electricity. I was going to say we're involved in every BTU except electricity. We do have one of our cooperatives in Ontario does and has invested heavily into solar panel generation. So they are working with their producers in Ontario, but the rest of the area, we have a 5-acre solar farm in Alpha, Illinois for our warehouse, and we're considering other projects, but we have not gotten into the solar nor wind. And another interesting statistic, it takes 20 acres of prime farmland solar panels to equate 1 windmill in generation. So think through that. I mean, I'm all for solar production, but we have some of the richest soils in the world. Shouldn't we be producing food products for the globe and our nation, our world security as well, food security? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.